Dan, I guess the biggest news yesterday from the games was the dive by Shaunae Miller in the 400 to help beat out Allison Felix and to get the gold. What was your reaction when you first saw her dive?
I thought she tripped, my first reaction, and then when I looked at it again, I thought, okay, even if you're going to dive as they teach you in baseball, like guys will slide into first base head first, you don't get there faster. So I thought if she did it and that was her strategy and your torso has to cross first, then I questioned the strategy, and then we realized that she won the gold medal as a result of it. But it almost felt like it was accidental in her winning the gold medal, because I don't think that anybody would script it that way. Hey, worst case scenario, just dive while going, 20 miles an hour.
Do you have a problem with it, Dan? Or you think they should change the rule to you can't go to the ground or something?
Well, no, I don't think that. But I think that they try to stave off any kind of unfair advantage with your hands, because it has to be your torso. So you still have to dive. You have to dive and get your torso across. Let's put it this way. I don't think it's going to catch on in those sprint races. Maybe where you're running, long distance, I could see somebody doing that if it came down to that. But, she still went down pretty hard as a result of it. But I give Felix a whole lot of credit. I mean, talk about poise. When she was interviewed after, she was fine with it. I mean, there was no sour grapes. There was no we should change this. She just said, hey, she did what she had to do, and she ended up winning gold.
It's funny, Dan, because you look at social media, here in the States, and there was a lot of negative reaction, and that should be illegal. What do you think the reaction would be if the roles were reversed and Felix, the American, had dove to get the gold at the end?
Oh, it would be the American spirit and the pride and the grit and that's what you do, whatever it takes to win the gold. We'd spin it in a way that's our advantage.
Speaking of rules, Paulie sent me this morning the story and the pictures and video of the French sprinter who he only does one race. It's the 110-meter hurdles, and he's been training for it for 4 years, and he false started, and he's out. The rule now is one and done. Do you think that's what the rule should be, Dan?
Well, I think it's dangerous, because I'm watching the 100 meters with Al Michaels, and I said, what if Bolt has a false start? And he goes, oh, God, don't say that. He goes, because it's one and done. Well, the race before, then we were watching like the semifinal heats, and a guy from Bahrain false started. And Al goes, I hope that takes care of the false start that you were talking about. So it was kind of a weird premonition I had, but I remember this guy from Bahrain, they just said, you, come here, you're out. And then the lane was empty. So I would prefer two, but I would prefer two for the entire group, not two for one person. If you do it twice, then, obviously, you deserve to be tossed out of there. But I think the group as a whole, if you gave them two, would be a little bit, when it comes to this kind of event, because you're right, you prepare for 4 years, and then all of a sudden it comes down to you get, an itchy trigger finger, and then you jump, and then you're gone, and just like that.
I guess I look at it a little bit differently. I think most of the Danettes agree with you, but to me, even if you do two for the group, which is what it used to be, I just think that entices guys to try to jump it, to try to time it up and jump the count. Maybe you time it up perfectly, and maybe that contributes to winning. I think if you say one and you're out, then everybody just has to sit and wait until they hear the gun go off.
Yeah, and that's what they've tried to do, is trying to stave that off of somebody jumping the gun. But, gosh, I still want to see everybody compete, and I think that would be the Olympic spirit of this, to let everybody compete. If worst case scenario is somebody's trying to jump the gun on you, how many times does that happen? And it's just pretty tough to say, hey, we got some nice parting gifts for you. See you.
We're talking with the boss, Stan Patrick, live down in Rio as the Olympic Games continue. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, Dan. We didn't dive into it much today, but we just teased it the very tail end of yesterday's show. Now, you've done a bunch of Olympic Games now. Strictly from a physical standpoint, strictly going by physique, if you could be any athlete, have any athlete's body based on the sport that they play, who would you pick?
So I'm not picking a specific athlete.
No,
I'm picking a sport.
No, like for me, it would probably for me, I'd say swimmer. I like that they've got big shoulders. I like the V, but they're still lean, but they're tall. They're like 6'6", 225, something like that. I'd want to be a swimmer if I could pick.
It's a little creepy, but yeah, probably a swimmer. I mean, those guys, or water polo. Those are some bad dudes there too, but I'd probably lean towards swimmer as well.
Paulie evidently has a caveat he wants to throw in here.
For both you guys, if you guys want the swimmer body, you have to shave your body at all times as well, so that's part of it.
No, then I'll be a track runner. I'll be a sprinter instead. I don't feel like shaving everything.
Anyway, Paulie, I don't get in the pools.
I want to sell you out.
Not a big deal. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but yeah, I've been doing it for years.
Dan, if you had to guess, what percentage chance do you think that the USA wins the gold in hoops? How concerned are you right now?
You get into that the medal picture, and you lose, you're out. So I keep waiting that they've had their wake up call. I just don't think they're a great team. I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, we don't have our best players. I just don't think they're a great team. And what you find with a lot of international play is these guys have been playing together for a long time. I mean, Serbia doesn't have anybody who could make the U.S. team, but they played better as a team than the United States did. They've been together. They make the extra pass. They know that they have to do more. The United States is just figuring out that we have to do more. You can't play total team ball, and then all of a sudden you get to crunch time, and then everybody forgets what they're supposed to do, or everybody has to go one-on-one. Kyrie Irving was passing when they were killing China. But now all of a sudden when you're playing Serbia or Australia, then he goes one-on-one in the final minutes. And you can't have that. They don't move the ball very well. And I think France gave them a good go of it as well. I still expect them to win the gold medal. I just don't think it's going to be as easy as everybody thought when they first got here, because the international play is really down this year. I mean, this isn't a good crop of international basketball. So I think it just comes down to, I don't think they're a very good team. Compared to other U.S. teams. Right.
One NFL topic I wanted to get you in on, Dan. There was a bunch from yesterday with the Al Jazeera stuff and Cam Newton's comments about not believing any criticism of him has to do with race. But Aaron Rodgers said some interesting things about, that NFL players don't speak their mind as much because they're afraid of repercussions from the NFL. But he also said, there's not a whole lot of upside to saying what you think. And he talked about, political correctness. You interview people for a living. You're about as good as anybody out there at it. Your thoughts on players that give you nothing versus players that are willing to say things and be interesting and maybe even speak up on certain issues?
Well, I appreciate when somebody does it. I understand when somebody doesn't want to do it, because Aaron is correct in saying, what is the upside here? Unless you're truly passionate about something and willing to go out on a risk and say, I'll take the slings and arrows here. Whatever you got, bring them my way. And I don't know if many guys are willing to do that. We're fortunate, I think, that when we go after somebody, we're going after somebody who's willing to say something, because I don't want to waste the audience's time on somebody who is not going to. Sometimes you'll have a newsmaker on because of what they've done, achieved, accomplished, but they may not be saying a whole lot about it, but you still try to do that. But for the most part, give me somebody who's willing to say something as opposed to somebody who's not. But I think that the athlete, and I've said it for years, they should control their own voice and be able to put it out. So then there's no nothing's lost in translation. You put it in context. Tiger's been doing this. The Players Tribune has been doing. I'm surprised it hasn't been done more and wasn't done sooner. But that way you control the narrative, and if you want to go out on a limb, you're able to do it in your own medium instead of kind of trusting us in the media that we're going to do it and dispense it in the correct way.
Dan, thanks for the time. We'll chat tomorrow.
Bye, buddy. See you guys.
There he is, Dan Patrick, the boss from Rio.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.